This is BD World. I am Syed Shabahat Ali, and you're watching Fault Lines. Ladies and gentlemen, the essence, the significance of semiconductor industry is not hidden from most of the observers of the international geopolitics. Not only it plays a significant role in modern science and technology, but also has become a very pertinent part of the larger geopolitical lift between the West and the East. And when I say East and the West, this means between China and the United States. China was one of the largest consumers of semiconductors till the year 2020. It was one of the largest importers. In the global trade, China enjoyed 53.7% of the net imports by all countries together. 53% of the imports were coming to China, and the United States and some other Western countries were the key manufacturers. But then the tide of the times turned around. The United States put sanctions initially on some of the major technological companies of China and then started thwarting China, pushing it toward the corner where it could not easily import the semiconductors. What happened as a result surprised everyone. China today not only meets its entire requirement of semiconductors, but also has become one of the largest exporters in the world, which has caused a great geopolitical shift as well in the relationship of the two countries. Why these semiconductors are so important, what are their uses, and why only few countries and few companies have monopoly on their manufacturing. To talk about this very pertinent subject, we have today invited a scientist. His name is Dr. Kashif Qureshi. Dr. Kashif Qureshi is an associate professor of cybersecurity at the University of Limerick, and joining me from Ireland. Dr. Kashif Qureshi, I welcome you to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Doctor, first tell us about the semiconductors. What exactly are these semiconductors and why are they used in all these modern equipments?
Okay, actually, basically, the semiconductors are the silent heroes behind our gadgets. It is a substance that has a specific electrical properties that enable it to serve as a foundation for computers and other electronic devices. So basically, it is a typically a solid chemical element or compound that conducts electricity under certain conditions, but not others. So this make it an ideal medium to control the electrical current and everyday electrical appliances. So they power everything from smartphones to computers, and their advancements drive innovation in fields like healthcare, transportation, and renewable energy as well. As per your second question, that why it is important. So semiconductors are the important because they form the backbone of the modern electronics and enabling the precise control of electrical currents. And without semiconductors, our interconnected world of technology and the progress wouldn't be possible. So semiconductors are the foundation, you can say, of the digital age and driving innovation and progress in almost every aspect of our life here.
So do I understand it correctly that anything that is a smart device that has uh, computerization involved in it, where a small computer is thinking and taking
Yeah,
controls, is it an essential part of every such thing?
semiconductors basically are the foundation of electronic devices. For example, smartphones, for the smartphones, computers, television, and the gaming consoles as well. Because these conductors give the power to the memory chips and integrated circuits that enable these devices to function. And these are also used in the telecommunication infrastructure, like in the mobile networks, in the broadband internet, and the satellite communication systems as well. Because these are used in transistors, amplifiers, and the signal processing circuits for transmitting and receiving the data. So as per in energy, so these are also used for the renewable energy technologies like solar panel and wind turbines, because they help to convert sunlight into electricity and regulate the flow of electricity in power electronic systems. And they are also used in automotive applications, for example, to control the engine, to control the safety system, navigation system, and the entertainment as well. So these conductors are enable advanced features such as electrical vehicles, powertrain, autonomous driving systems, and vehicle-to-vehicle communication as
Dr.
well.
Sahab, Dr.
So
Sahab,
these are also, yeah. Uh,
Dr. Sahab, if you allow me, I mean, if this is such an important and critical part of the entire modern science that we have around us, you have named transistors, radios, you have named satellites, solars, cars, smartphones, computers. So why the modern science has only restricted the access of this technology to a few companies? I mean, why this is not widely manufactured or processed everywhere in the world? It's such a critical part. It should be manufactured everywhere. Why only few countries or few companies have access to this technology or its manufacturing?
Actually, the semiconductor industry has historically been dominated by a few key players for this different reasons. For example, the high capital investment, because building the semiconductor fabrication facilities requires the massive capital investment and running into billions of dollars. Only a few companies have the financial resources to establish and maintain the state of the art manufacturing facilities. And there are some other factors like the semiconductor manufacturing require advanced technological expertise. So companies that have invested heavily in research and development and have a deep understanding of semiconductors, physics and engineering tends to have the competitive advantages. So as per the economical scale, so semiconductor production benefits from economies of scale when the larger production volumes lead to lower average cost per unit. So companies with a larger market share can spread their fixed cost over higher volume of production and making it difficult for the smaller competitors to compete on price. And intellectual properties, global supply chain control, and the long development cycles are some of the reason we can say, okay, involved in the semiconductor technologies to bringing them to the market, because these require the significant time and the resources as well. So that's why we can say there are a monopoly of few companies to design and manufacturing these semiconductors.
Dr. Whenever we talk about the semiconductors or the chips, Taiwan's name flash in the international media. And what we do not understand is that why Taiwan becomes important, because it is not situated in the West. It's very far from the United States. It's very far from Europe. It's a small island. And we don't know Taiwan for any other thing as much as we know it for the production of the semiconductors. So, is it a technology that has been transferred there, or is it some local research that Taiwan has done on this? Why Taiwan has become so important in the industry of
Actually,
semiconductors?
yeah, yeah. Actually, the Taiwan has become a significant player in the global chip business, and because of different reasons, because they have their one company, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, which is founded in 1987, and this is has become the world largest dedicated independent semiconductor foundry. And this company basically manufacturing the chips for other semiconductor companies. And they are offering very advanced manufacturing processes and the technology nodes. So the Taiwanese governments are provided the support and the investment in the semiconductor industry and recognizing its strategic importance to the country economy as well. So they have the policy which are promoting the research and the development, talent cultivation and infrastructure development, and Taiwan to establish a competitive advantage to semiconductor manufacturing. And definitely this company is the second in the rank in the world ranking. as per capital. So it is the second number in the world, okay, to designing, and because of there are different reasons. They have technological leadership and the innovation in this manufacturing, and the company has the ability to develop and scale the advanced manufacturing processes. Like one example, if I will share with you, they are
Dr. Shab,
designing. Okay, yes.
Dr. Kashif, so what I understand from your conversation that it's purely a business model development that has actually led them to lead the business. But now, essentially, we're talking about the United States monopoly or the US's companies that have been enjoying a monopolistic environment. Now, China has started manufacturing a lot of chips, and not only it's meeting its domestic requirement, but also has started to export. So, don't you think that while China didn't have all these technologies available, it's quite a big leap that they have taken by not only developing this industry in such a small time, but also meeting their entire industrial requirement?
Yeah, they have started, okay, to develop these types of semiconductor industries and the technologies. But as per the Taiwan is a geopolitical position this time, because this is situated near with the major technology market in the East Asia. So as tension rise between the United States and the China regarding the semiconductor supply chains, so Taiwan role as a semiconductor manufacturing hub gains increased strategic significance, and the China has facing some challenges and issues which are related to the geopolitical tensions and some shortage of the critical components and some complex manufacturing processes. So currently they are buying these all the semiconductor from the Europe market and from Taiwan as well. But yeah, recently they started, okay, they have some few companies there, and because all over the world 121 companies they are working and designing these semiconductor in all over the world. And China is, yeah, definitely China changed the policy, okay, and they have, yeah, working on that, but still they are facing some challenges. But currently they are buying these all the chips from the Taiwan and from the Europe as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kashif Qureshi, for being guest in our show.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was Dr. Kashif Qureshi, who told us that United States and the Western companies had a monopolistic environment or a monopolistic situation that they were enjoying in their favor. China has, on the contrary, not only developed the technology, but also has gone to the extent of manufacturing where it is successfully meeting its domestic requirement and also has started exporting these components abroad. We'll take a break and we'll join you back with second segment of the program. Stay with us. Welcome back. The recent visit of President of Iran to Pakistan had an enormous significance in the political and diplomatic relationship of the two sides. Let me remind you that the state of Pakistan, the existence of Pakistan is perhaps 77 years old, but still the relationship between these two regions or these two countries is thousands of years old. The culture, economy, exchange of education goes back in times. And to this date, when both these countries are enjoying an enormous relationship, a great diplomatic relationship together, there are many expectations from the international commentators and the international observers as well. This visit comes amid both the countries having exchanged some military strikes earlier in the beginning of this year, after which the leadership of both the countries decided to take a big leap. Initially, the foreign minister of Iran came to Pakistan, and then the president of Iran came to Pakistan and met the top leadership of the country, as circulated on media and as informed us through the diplomatic channels. Economy as well as the free trade was one of the primary concerns of the Iranian side, which was agreed by the Pakistani side as well. But as we always say, such developments always have a larger geopolitical, geo-economic angle associated or entangled with it. So in order for us to understand better what is running in the background of this visit, we have invited an expert. Her name is Dr. Anna Mahmood, who is going to tell us about the larger politics, the large geopolitics behind this development. Dr. Anna, I welcome you to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Give us a contextual overview of this visit, the timing and the decision of Iranian president to be in Pakistan right after the new government have taken cards.
Yes, I think that the timings and the profile of the visitor was very important for Pakistan because, Pakistan, as you mentioned, that we are having historical, religious, and geopolitical relationship that goes back 2 centuries back. But I think that this time is very important because we know that there is insecurity and regional tension in Middle East, and Iran is a part of Middle East, and we are just sharing a long border with Iran. And at this time, when there was a tension between Iran and Israel, and they have exchanged, not only skirmishes, but very serious missile attacks against each other, and especially after the attack on Iranian embassy in Damascus, that was actually that was the major cause of conflict. So there is a possibility to escalate war beyond Middle East, and certainly that would be having an effect on South Asia and the whole world in the long run if it escalates. So it was an effort to enlarge and then revive its relationship with the neighboring countries. It was timely planned by Iran, though it was already scheduled, but it was materialized, and Pakistan welcomed them because we reciprocate the same feelings and relationship as extended by Iranian president. So I think that it was well planned and well timed. As you mentioned, the geopolitical and economics is now mixed up. So I think that Pakistan should avail this opportunity to materialize all those MOUs signed for increasing trade, for having closer relationship, and we should go for energy security as well, and which is long-standing issue between the two countries, the IP pipeline issue. Iran-Pakistan pipeline issue.
Dr. Sahib, if you allow me, I would want to draw your attention to a more pertinent point, and that is China signing a couple of years ago a $450 billion worth of agreement with Iran, which makes Pakistan an extremely important member of this entire coalition, because without Pakistan enjoying great relationship with Iran, having great harmony with Iran, apparently a direct trade between the two sides looks difficult, and this perhaps is why many of the international commentators are also crediting China to instigate Iran to not only improve its relationship with Pakistan but also with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So how do you look into it from this context?
That is very optimistic view, and we share the same. But I think that when China is the guarantor of Iran and Saudi rapprochement, and that guarantee is including a huge investment by China in Iran and Saudi Arabia as well, and there are more prospects in investing in Neom City as well in Saudi Arabia. And same is the case with Pakistan, though investment level is quite low as compared to the one in Iran. This is the time that we should take this opportunity, as you mentioned, that they cannot have this collision without us. But I think that the things are not going in that direction, and Pakistan has to work hard to be in that collision, because Pakistan is running out of its time, and We are not working on the pace. We are not creating internal stability to have more investment, materializing our economic commitments in the form of CPAC. So we have to work hard. At the same time, it is in favor of Pakistan that Saudi and Iran are having good relations. They have restored and they are doing in right direction. And in that case, Pakistan, as we were having this dilemma in the past that if we extend our relations to one, then other gets annoyed. Now both are our friends. Saudi Arabia and Iran are on the same page, and their relationship is sponsored and guaranteed by China. So that is in favor of Pakistan, and we can extend our hands towards both our friends, Muslim friends, and as well as we can increase and we can enhance our relationship towards China. One thing is very important, that if you are thinking that China needs us or Iran needs us for having advancement, that is mistaken, because they have invested in Afghanistan as well. And the peace in Afghanistan guarantees that they can have direct road to, as you know, that they are developing their road on Wakhan. That is a narrow belt of 16 kilometers, and they can make railroads and they can make roads through Afghanistan to Iranian border, and can use Chabahar port in the same way. As India is not showing more interest, and they are almost they have fallen into Western camp, so China has got this space that they can use the same route through Chabahar port to the Gulf. So I think that we should think in terms of the ground realities, and we should avail this opportunity to have good relations with Iran and so on. That would be in the benefit of Pakistan.
Dr. Sabah, as you rightly discussed Chabahar and China in this conversation, that reminds me of the great relationship that Iran has with India. And also, the President of Iran has an upcoming visit of India. How do you believe India would be looking into the developments between Pakistan and Iran, and what would be India's expectations?
You're right. This question is very pertinent. And we always weigh our relationship with Iran and India relations. You see that the world has advanced a lot. And if you compare your relationship, we are having very close relationship, 75 years old with United States, but United States is having even much stronger relationship with Israel. But you are not saying United States that leave Israel and keep our relationship, and that should not be at the cost of. Same is the case with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is having very close relationship with India, and they are investing a lot. Then we should come out of this. We are not in a position to bargain because our economy is very weak. We are not having political stability here, and we have to make our interest in economy and relationship. And we should not think in terms of me too and me not too. We should think in terms of what we can extract and we can get from our bilateral relationship.
Point taken, Dr. Anna Mahmood. Point taken, Dr. Anna Mahmood. Thank you very much for being guest in our show. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break and we'll join you back with the last segment of the program. Stay with us. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As we always keep mentioning the major economic events in the world, and we also try to stitch that in the larger geo-economic or geopolitical order that exists, or the situation that is arising. One of the recent articles that have been published by Bloomberg have once again reminded that despite the fact that gold is on its ever historic highest price of $2,336 an ounce, it might just go further up from here. And the reason behind it is that many countries, as well as many federal banks that are not directly managed by the governments, are also buying gold amid the situation that is weakening the dollar and many other major currencies in the world. Now, this is an important development because a few of the major currencies are also getting to lose their value against the gold. And if the situation goes on, this will cause a massive devaluation. Also, it has panicked the investors across not only Wall Street but also in the commodities market, where people are now trying to decide whether to buy gold or not. What would be its impact on the larger economics? To talk about this very pertinent subject, my first guest in this studio is Sultan Ali Haider, who is an expert of economics and political economy. Sultan, I welcome you to the show.
Always a pleasure, Shabahat. Thank you.
How do you see this spike in the price of gold? And let me remind you that we did a show on this in December 2023 when the price was on $2,135 an ounce, and we had discussed that this is on historic ever high. Yesterday it's 2,336. We are good $200 an ounce above the ever highest that we had discussed back in December.
So ever highest historically is always something that is of surprise, right? So naturally we can assume that people did not expect this. But then again, people have been expecting this, and as we discussed last time, I think the first time we started discussing this topic was when in your show back in March 2022, when the Ukraine war and that crisis started, because it stems from that. So why it has reached? Because there's a lot of uncertainty. So one thing is, I would say, I would rather ask you, because you discuss all of these issues. So my question is, what is going on in the world? Is the world going crazy because escalations keep on happening, instability continues to increase, and we do not see world powers de-escalating or backing off and coming or showing to the world there's a path towards political stability. And I'm talking about at the global stage, larger global stage. So that is the prime motivator of that. As it is obvious, everyone talks about gold is a safe haven, but it's not just the gold is a safe haven and there's geopolitical instability. So it's not one of that. At times there's this, okay, there's North Korea related crisis, that North Korea is testing something, so there's something wrong with that front, or Taiwan China front, or some other front. Now it is that Ukraine crisis, there's a continuous build up of weapons. We see recently about $62 billion has been approved. The news item which are circulating is that there would be military advisors now going into Western military advisors from NATO countries going into Ukraine, which would be sort of manning the...
Sultan, if we can just bring it back to the pure economics. I am now joined by Dr. Mahmood Khalid, who is a leading economist, frequently appears on show Fault Line. Dr. Sahab, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Shabahat.
How do you see this spike in gold price, and how is it going to affect the economies at large in different corners of the world?
Well, I would tend to disagree a bit with the Salman's version of why the gold prices are actually rising. What we see is that we have to go a bit deep in terms of from where actually the demand is originating. Mostly it has been from the central banks, which has been buying the gold bullion as a reserve for their currencies. Now, this particularly shows the kind of uncertainty which you have earlier mentioned in terms of the currency holding. But this time it was a bit odd because the dollar is actually rising, especially if you look at in comparison to the Chinese currency. But we see investors buying gold even though the dollars are up. At the same time, what we see is that since the interest rates across the globe are higher, so that means that anybody who would like to invest in bonds would also be getting good yields. So what we see on ground is that there is another player in the market, which is basically the Chinese retail investors, which are buying the dollars in lieu of expecting that the gold, because they expect that the gold is going to go up from this benchmark 2000 psychological barrier even up to 3000. but this is not the standard prescription. So, in terms of how it is going to affect the economies across the globe, what we see is that definitely it is going to affect those emerging economies which were trying to stockpile the gold as a reserve. That is going to halt their progress in terms of buying that. At the same time, investment options going towards the equity or some other kinds of investments in the dollar bonds or others, that is going to go down. So we don't see that the buying of the gold is going to directly impact the economies. Rather, it's a reflection of some kind of an uncertainty in the economic performance of the economies, which is leading towards the individuals to buy the gold as a reserve for their value as well as for their hedging of risks.
Doctor, if you can help us to understand the connection, that nexus that lies between the interest rates and the gold prices and inflation. How does this work together? Do they have a direct relationship or an inversely proportional relationship with each other?
Well, there is a direct relationship with the inflation. This is what has happened now as well. Since the commodity prices rise in 2019, they have actually not come down. So, in other words, there is still inflation expectations in the market. The people are expecting that the inflation is not going to go down or go back to that level which was pre-COVID. So what this means is that the inflation is going to go up, meaning that the real purchasing power of the currencies is going to go down. So this actually prompts the people to buy the gold as their asset for future, because if they have a liquid asset which can be directly converted into the market as well as protect them in terms of the returns towards their investment, they're going to buy that. So from an inflation gold buying perspective is that whenever there is going to be higher inflation, there is going to be higher buying of the gold. Whereas in the case of interest rates, normally speaking, since the interest rate is the rate of return on the investments of the people in bonds, so generally there is a negative relationship, because generally it is felt that the people are going to invest in high yielding bonds. But this time, since there is an uncertainty because of the inflation, the people really don't buy this, that the interest rate hikes is good enough so that the returns are protected. So in other words, the metals market, especially the gold, is more promising in terms of investment, even though the interest rates are still on the higher side. Generally speaking, they have a negative relationship.
Coming back to you, Sultan, so purely from the market's angle, you buy any product, any commodity, you wait for this to hit its peak. And when it's peaked, then every chart on earth, every formula that you have read anywhere would want you to sell it because it's now more probable to come down. And it breaks its previous record, and then it beats that record again. How does the market psychology respond to it? Because we are talking in context of gold being on 2,300, and there is an expectation of it being to 3,000, but it hasn't never been. So how would people take it? I mean, the people in the market.
So you see, there are 2, 3, and there are new buyers in the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's usual retail buying, then there's buying by sovereigns, right? Or the treasuries. But at this point in time, new buyers came in because the sovereigns also started buying more, and people also started buying more due to the uncertainty, and then again the confidence due to geopolitical uncertainty that we were talking about. So when that extra demand came in, the prices went up, then the speculators also jump in. Now again, so it's a mixed bag, right? So now again, in terms of the speculators, so whether they would start selling it now, assuming that it has hit the top, just like the phenomena that you're talking about, or the expectation it will go to 3,000 then. But in my opinion, the uncertainty has reached a stage and it is continuing to increase. That's what I was talking about, because the whole Russia-Ukraine thing, the de-escalation is not happening in the NATO-Russia space. Why I was talking about that, in 2022 we spoke about that. At that time, we discussed in detail that the Russian foreign exchange assets were frozen. Right now, so that news has come in. So now they're going ahead and locking those in. So now that action is happening. Russia is now freezing assets of Western enterprises, right? So with that happening, so we spoke about that, the confidence in dollar as a reserve currency of the world would go down. So China is buying a lot of gold because of that. India is buying a lot of gold because of that. Turkey is buying, and central banks across the world are buying a lot of gold because of that. And also in terms of individuals, just like our economist colleague, Mr. Mahmood, spoke about it, right? For any individual investor, whether it's you or me, he's saying dollar is very strong. So if the dollar is really strong and then the yields in dollar investments are very strong, a person is disincentivized to buy gold. What return gold gives? Nothing. But that means psychologically, you're talking about psychology, psychologically as a to preserve your wealth, this is time immemorial asset which can be used in any country across the world.
Dr. Saab, coming back to you, my last question, and I'm in the last minute of the program, how this gold price is going to affect economies like that of Pakistan?
Well, in case of Pakistan, gold is not main concern of the government. So it's not a sovereign commodity which the government is looking forward to buy. Certainly the individuals are buying the gold as a reserve asset, as well as therefore jewelry and other domestic consumption. So what we see in general that the demand for jewelry and other perspectives have been going down because of the prices. But as an asset, still there is a demand because the people want to hedge against the inflation, as Sultan Sahab has rightly mentioned. So what we see from this rise in the gold prices, there is going to be significant increase in the gold. And since many people or many other investments are actually anchored around the gold prices as an alternative rate of return. So what we see is that there is going to be some ripple effects on the assets class, whether it's real estate or some kinds of other potential equity investments, which need some correction, which are linked with the gold. So there is going to be some impact on the rates of return of the alternative investments, but not from the government perspective, since the government is not a buyer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for being guest in our show. Thank you very much, Sultan Ali Haider, for coming in the program. And ladies and gentlemen, as they normally say, all that shines is not the gold. But in today's context, thing that is outshining every other asset is called gold. We'll join you next week with another program. And until then, Allah Hafiz.